In 2019, the British people decided that the most disappointing attraction in the world was the Mona Lisa, Da Vinci's masterpiece. So how is it that the very emblem of tourism itself can become more disappointing than boy urinating in fountain and what is essentially a road in Berlin? Let's find out. Now, most people are going to tell you it's because the painting's overhyped or that it's smaller than you'd expect. And yeah, I don't buy those reasons because I don't think it's got anything to do with art at all. I think it has to do with economics, and I can explain using some pretty basic maths. In fact, let me go get a pen and paper. So the Louvre is open for about 9.5 million seconds a year. Now every year, 6.8 million people visit the gallery just to see the Mona Lisa. So if you divide the number of people by the available time, you get this, just under 1.4 seconds per person. Okay, so that would be the amount of time you'd get if you were to see the picture on your own, which, unless you're Beyonce, obviously doesn't happen. So instead, what the Louvre are forced to do is to pack 100 people in a room together at the same time and give them just 2 minutes, which is why you experience the painting like this. This is why tourists find the Mona Lisa so disappointing, because you queue for hours, you worry about pickpockets only to get 2 minutes, looking at a painting the size of a large microwave. It's not surprising that we find the Mona Lisa underwhelming, because this isn't how art galleries are sold to us. When we go to a museum, we're expecting, I think, to see something more like this.
Always makes me feel a little melancholy. A grand old warship being ignominiously hauled away for scrap.
The Louvre and the Mona Lisa couldn't be further from this experience, and it's been getting worse for years, much to the frustration of visitors. It isn't hard to find a bad review of the Louvre. Reviews of the gallery in the summer months in 2024 were 20% lower than they were in 2017. And it's not just the visitors who are unhappy. In 2019, staff walked out in protest of working conditions. And in early January, a leaked memo by the director of the gallery, Laurence Degas, cited infrastructure issues and the fact that the gallery had reached a saturation point. Now, to be fair to the museum, it's not like they haven't tried to manage the problem. In an effort to limit visitors, they set a daily cap of 30,000 people. Then, just before the Olympics, they increased ticket prices by 30%. The problem was that none of this worked. The queues and crowds just got worse. This is why, in early January, Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, announced the gallery was set to undergo a massive renovation. So, what's Macron trying to do here? And why is renovation the answer when everything else has failed? The museum was never designed to hold 8 million people. The last major renovation of the gallery was over 30 years ago, led by renowned Chinese architect Diane Pei. The major feature Pei added was the now iconic glass pyramid at the center of the gallery. This was set to be the main entrance, which led to a subterranean level that allowed visitors to access all wings of the museum. While the Louvre had expanded in size, it wasn't exactly practical, and it didn't take long for people to notice the problem. In a piece in Art in America, in 1993, art critic Wade Saunders noted that the ever-increasing attendance seems to have been imperfectly anticipated. There can be a long wait to enter and some jostling to exit, and these problems will get worse with attendance. You know, to be fair, I.M. Pei did kind of nail the brief, because choosing aesthetics and beauty over practicality and comfort does feel fairly French. Anyway, Wade Saunders was right. The queues and problems did get worse, and by the late 2000s, it had become noticeable. In 2014, in an effort to understand why congestion had become such a problem, MIT studied which exhibits people wanted to see and the path they took to get there. No matter how long people stayed in the gallery, most people ended up taking the same route. meaning the art lovers wanted to see the same paintings as the bucket listers. They just moved slower. Daily visitor caps and price increases weren't going to work because they didn't address the motivations of the visitor. In the end, most of us want to see the same things, along the same routes at roughly the same time. And that is why Macron is proposing a massive renovation. The question is it going to work? Okay, so to answer this, we should probably break down what's in the actual proposal. The first big announcement is that the Mona Lisa is getting her own dedicated exhibit. Now, this is going to allow the Louvre to do a few things. First, anyone who's going just to see the Mona Lisa won't affect those that want to see the rest of the gallery. Think of it as separating the bucket listers from the art lovers. Second, crowds should become more predictable, smaller, and therefore somewhat easier to manage. And finally, they're adding a new entrance on the side of the River Seine. This should address some of the problems caused by the last renovation. I think, though, this proposal goes beyond just solving problems. I think it's actually creating opportunities. By removing the main attraction, the Louvre can celebrate the lesser known yet still extraordinary works by the likes of Vermeer, the ancient Egyptians, or the Assyrians. There are, after all, 380,000 works in the museum's inventory. It's just that for decades, most people have just talked about one. Now, this brings us to the major benefit, the thing that Macron is really hoping for. Improving the management and dispersal of crowds will, theoretically, allow the gallery to remove its daily visitor cap, meaning they can increase the number of annual visitors from the 9 million they're at now to 12 million once the renovation is complete. And that is what the Louvre is banking on, literally, because increased ticket sales is one of the ways they're financing this renovation. When you compare this proposal to the last major renovation, it does feel different. And I think that is because Pei's work felt more like a celebration of the gallery's beauty, epitomized by the glass pyramid itself. This proposal, though, feels more practical, as if they're addressing some of the shortcomings in design and crowd management, while also anticipating what's about to happen next in tourism. Which, spoiler alert, is that the number of tourists is set to double in the next 25 years. In the end, whether it works or not, it's still this extraordinary moment for tourism. I think the Mona Lisa is this cautionary tale for tourism. On the one hand, you have the most famous gallery in the world admitting for the very first time that it cannot cope with the crowds, that they're ruining the visitor experience, harming the reputation of the gallery, and even the well-being of the staff. So much so that they need an €800 million renovation to fix it. And that, by the way, is the cost of over-tourism. If you haven't seen our video on over-tourism, click up here. We'll put a link to it. If one of the greatest portraits ever made by one of the greatest artists that's ever lived in one of the most celebrated museums in the world cannot survive the impacts of crowds, then surely no tourism attraction can say it's safe. On the other hand, it shows what can be done when we acknowledge there are in fact limits to growth. This renovation could create opportunities to celebrate the works of other artists, improve working conditions, and make our experience far, far more enjoyable. Taking the main attraction out of the gallery may end up becoming a masterstroke in sustainable tourism. Thanks so much for watching.